Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I want to do is just kind of show you the basics of building a slider. Again, there's more than one way to build a slider, and this is just going to be a very crude slider just to kind of give you sort of conceptually how it's done. And let's do this. I'm going to actually use the same project as I used for the hamburger video, so we already have a navigation on that. So I'm going to head on to the main. Now let me think about how I want to do the slider. So the slider is going to be sort of this div that kind of floats in the middle. So I'm going to create a div. Okay. And yeah, I'm just going to have the div on its own, then have the button, the controls below it. So I'm going to have another div for the controls. So div. Actually, I'll just use Emmet. Div.controls. Okay, and then here I'm just going to add class slider. Cool. And essentially what we're going to be doing is just basically having a series of images. And let's do that. So we're going to create a bunch of image tags. So image source equals okay, Control C. Okay, just like that. Now let's go grab some images. So we'll head over to images.google.com. And I'm just going to look up some happy people. Why not? Okay, so let's go for more squarish images. So let's copy image address. Let's do a few more. Copy image address. Let's copy image address. Copy image address. And then copy image address. Oh, try again. Copy image address. There we go. So now first let's just open this up in live server and see we end up with this. So what we want to do is first, let's see, we have all these pictures showing up funny. So here's what we are going to do. We need to style this stuff. So styling, what we want to do. Okay, let me just go take a look at the div slider. So what I'm going to do is just create a comment here. Slider. Just to help divvy things up. Okay, so first a slider class, and what I want is I want that to have a width of 50% of the screen. Actually, we'll do width by 500 pixels. And yeah, a height of 500 pixels. And we want to center it, so margin auto, or we'll just say margin Yeah, marginato. See how that's looking. Let's see here. Main. That's the image, but where's the div container that it's in? Let's see here. Main. There's a div called slider. Okay, there's the div called sliders right there. Okay, and that's why the picture is popping out like that. Got it. Okay, cool. Now let's go back. Now what I want is images inside the slider. To be within the width and height. So width, say 490 pixels, and height 490 pixels. Okay. And what is it for the images? So dot slash image. And I want the display right now to be none. So they should all disappear. Good. Now what I want is I want the first image to be visible. Dot slider. It should be like nth child. And I want the first one, which should be 0. We'll try that out. And we want that to be display visible. Cool. I could go this route, but actually I'm thinking of a better route to do this. So what I want to do is I want to take this off. Leave that there for a second. That's gonna just leave that. So now it's just a bunch of 500 pictures right now. That's fine for now. And I want to go back to our JavaScript. I'm actually going to make the pictures live in our JavaScript. Okay. So we're going to create an array of pictures. Okay, and basically we're going to say images const images equals, and we have 5 of them, so let me just do this. Okay. Now let me go get these images from here. Control C. Control C. Control C. Control C. Control C. And then we can delete all this but the first image. Save. Okay, good. So let's take a look at our thing. Okay. There's our picture. Good. And then we have an array of photos. Life's good. And then we're going to have a variable called let image equal. And since we're on the first image, the next image would be 1. Okay. Save. Okay, cool. So basically here's going to be the sort of the thought process if I were going to do this. We're going to make it that whenever you click a button that's on the screen, it's just going to change the source property on that image to one of these images here. So essentially we're using the same image tag, just changing the source property. That's sort of the premise. But 0 would be this first string, which is technically what's already up there. So that's why I'm starting with 1. So the first time it goes through it, it's going to, then move on to the next image, then 2, then 3, then 4. Well, technically this would be 4, and then it'll restart. Okay, so we'll create that logic. First, let's create some buttons for going backwards and forwards. So let's go to controls, and I want to use some emojis. So let's go back to Graphmeka. Graphmeka is the website, and I want to find some arrows. Okay, and we have some arrows. Just find something a little bit more decorative. But here we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 buttons. And here's another button. And this one's going to have this arrow inside of it. And let's go get the other arrow. Let's go through this one. Grab the arrow. And do that. See how that's looking? Okay, so there's the 2 buttons. But we don't want those 2 buttons all the way over there, so let's clean this up. Back to over here. So differ controls, so style of the controls piece. Dot controls. I'm going to make that a width of 40%. Margin auto, I just want to center it. I want to center the buttons and they're inline, so text align, center. Cool. Now the buttons, dot controls button. I want to make the font size extra large. Let's see how that's looking. Okay, these are looking more like buttons. I think that's good enough for now, just for a really simple slider. Okay. Again, this is going to be very, very crude. Cool, but we're getting somewhere. Okay, we have buttons. Let me give them a little bit of margin. And I think we're good. Margin 30 pixels. There we go. Okay. I want to give these buttons names. Oh, we're gonna call this one ID back. And then we'll call this one ID equals forward. Okay, save. Now let's go to the app.js. We need to create a function. So we're going to create a handler for forward button. Okay, so const forward. We'll just call it forward click equals, it's an event handler, so event okay, the first thing I want it to do, and I want to make sure that the image tag is available, so I'm going to add that to my globals. So we're going to take the image tag, there's only one. So const img equals the image tag. Yeah. So we're going to take the image tag and change the attribute of source to images, the images array with the index of image. Okay, after it does that, it should take image and increment it. Or actually, let's do this. Say if image, the number, that's the index number, equals images dot length, the length of the array. Because if that's the case, then we need to reset this to 0. And then we would do that. So that's if you kind of hit the end. Now, if it's not, that means we haven't hit the end of the list of images. So then you would set this to that and do image plus plus. Okay, so basically it'll go, it starts with 1, so it'll change it over to the first image, and the second, and the third, and the fourth. And then index 4, which is the 5th image, and then it'll go back to 0, and 0 through 5, 0 through 4, 0 through 4, 0 through 4. You get the idea, so it'll just cycle through. And we're going to add this to the forward button, so let me actually make variables for the buttons. Const back equals the thing that has the ID of back, so there you go. Just need parentheses. Const forward, which would equal the thing that has an ID of forward. Okay, now what's it not like about that? Oh, I used the pound sign, dollar sign. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now add another click handler. So number forward dot on. When we click on the forward button, it's going to do forward click. Okay. Let's see if that works. If I click this. Okay, it's not working. Let's take a look in the console. Do we see a warning, an error? No. Let's just make sure that I'm clicking the right button. ID equals forward. That's that button, yes. Let's take a look at my logic here. If equals images.length. Image.attribute source. Is that what I'm looking for? Yep. Equals images So just to make sure that the function's working first, console.log YOLO. So I just put a console log just to see that if I click on it, does it show the console log? Because if so, then there's a problem with my logic. If it doesn't, that means it's not playing the function, which means there's something else at foot. So that's always my first test. Is the function actually running? So let's see here. Refresh. Okay, so it is showing the console log, even though I typed logo instead of YOLO. But that works. Is there more than one image tag that I'm missing here? Image. So we're taking the image, saving this variable. Is the image changing? Let me put that in the console. Image is still 0. I hit it again. Image should be 1. Still 0. So let's go back and take a look. Okay, let's take a look at our if statement. Oh, I put an assignment, that's why. If images equals images.length. There we go. So let's actually make it strict equality. So there we go. Now let's see here. There we go. And now I can cycle through the images. So now all I have to do is just do the second one. Okay, so that way this back button works. Which is just the same logic, so I can literally copy the same function. And just call it back click. And except the only difference is that this time it will subtract 1. And if image equals 0, okay, then what it's going to do is change it to 5. So basically same exact function, just backwards. So then I change back dot on click. So when you click on that the back button, it's going to use back click. Save, and let's see. I think we should have a slider now. And it works. There you go. You have a slider. You know, again, with some fancier animations and stuff like that, you can make it a little bit more fancier. But this, you see the basic function. Basically, all I'm doing is that I'm clicking this button, and it's just changing the source attribute on this image. And yeah, that's it. It's just changing it, and creating a nice little slider effect. Now you can do more stuff when you click the button, like maybe it applies a class that triggers an animation and then takes off that class as it makes the switch, however you want to do it. But yeah, that's essentially the premise behind a slider. So again, just to kind of walk through the steps, I have all my images listed in an array here, and all this does is using this image to kind of determine the index as image variable. It just checks to see if I'm at the end of the array. That's why we're comparing it to the array's length, to make sure we don't go further, because there is no picture past index 4. So if for some reason our index equals 5, it'll just reset it back to 0 and show the first picture. And it just keeps adding 1 to the index, showing you the next picture every time you click, and repeats itself. That's literally it. Again, it's just saying, hey, is the number too high? Then start from the beginning. If the number too low, start from the end, and just kind of keeps working forward. So yeah, that's a slider. Sounds good. I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao.